So welcome back. The next chapter is prospectus and allotment of securities. So we'll discuss the amendments in this prospectus and allotment of securities. The first one is section 42. Actually there is no amendment, but those who are reading Mastermind's 41st edition material, for them this is the just correction. So under private placement, if company makes any violation, that means there are there are many conditions, many rules and regulations governing private placement. If any condition was violated, for example, private placement shall be made up to 200 members for the financial year per security. Advertisement should not be done. Renunciation is not available, and allotment should be done to those persons who apply for securities. And who has to file securities? Those whose names are stated in the persons whose names are stated in the private placement offer cum application letter. They only has to file an application, and for them only allotment should be done. So there are some rules and regulations that regulates the private placement. If the company violates these private placement conditions, then the company as well as officer in default are punishable. So what is the punishment, sir? Only fine and only fine, no imprisonment. Sir, how much is the penalty? How much is the penalty? Amount involved in the private placement or rupees 2 crores, whichever is lower. In our previous edition, it was written as higher. You just correct it. It's not higher, it's a lower. So the company, its promoters, the company, promoters and directors, no officer in default, the company, promoters and directors of our company shall be liable for a penalty up to amount raised through private placement or rupees 2 crores. Individually, everyone has to pay this amount. Companies, for example, in private placement, total amount involved was 50 lakhs. So 50 lakhs or 2 crores, whichever is lower. Company has to pay 50 lakhs, promoters has to pay 50 lakhs individually, and directors has to pay 50 lakhs individually. Suppose if amount involved in the private placement is 10 crores, then maximum punishment is restricted to 2 crores. So company is liable to pay 2 crores. See, this amount is in addition to the refund of the amounts. This punishment is in addition to the refund of the amounts that company collected from under the private placement. That is the B point. The company shall refund all the monies to the subscribers within 30 days of the order imposing the penalty, and company shall be liable to pay interest at the rate of 12% per annum to the subscribers. So first of all, we treat it as irregular allotment, and then company has to refund the application amounts received from the subscribers along with the interest plus punishment for violation of section 42. The punishment is amount involved in the private placement or rupees 2 crores, whichever is lower. Rupees 2 crores, whichever is lower. And the second amendment is matters to be stated in the prospectus. Old provision. The prospectus shall be filed with ROC for registration on or before the date of publication, that is the date of prospectus. Yes, we all know of that. Prospectus should be dated. Sir, date of prospectus is very important because generally prospectus will have a validity period of 90 days. 90 days from the date of from the date mentioned in the therein. Yes or no? So date is very important, and the prospectus has to be filed with ROC on or before date of publication. Prospectus has to be filed with ROC, and ROC shall register the same and issue the some certificate that prospectus was registered. Now after amendment, the same requirement was removed. That means registration was removed. See, new provision. The prospectus shall be filed with ROC. That's it. The purpose is not for registration. It's just filing. It's just filing. Prospectus is filed with ROC on or before the date of publication, that is the date of prospectus. Sir, what is the difference between registration and filing? See, under registration, the company will file documents with ROC, and ROC shall verify the document. ROC has to read the entire document. ROC ensures the adequacy of disclosures, not accuracy of the disclosures. ROC verify adequacy of the disclosures, whether all the information was present or not. It will check. It will be checked by ROC. So after verification only ROC shall issue the certificate of registration. But this is a time taking one because ROC has to perform multiple duties. Are you getting my point? So ROC has to perform multiple duties. In addition to these duties, again reading the prospectus, registering the prospectus. Yes, ROC has to spend a time. That means some time taking task will be involved. Some time taking will be done. Thereby company gets delayed in publication of prospectus. So the ROC work burden is increasing and company has to wait till ROC issues the certificate. So unnecessary delay. Why unnecessary delay? Now lawmaker, what he did? He removed the provision of registration because already the prospectus was registered with SEBI. Already one copy was filed with SEBI. SEBI will verify. Why again ROC has to verify? Why unnecessary time delay? So no need. Just you file prospectus with ROC. Just file prospectus with ROC. Now don't wait till ROC confirmation. You can proceed for a public offer. So earlier you are required to register prospectus with ROC, but now that requirement is not there. Just you file information with ROC like this. File information with ROC. And don't bother about ROC, go and make public offer. So time gets saved and ROC work burden will be reduced. So that ROC can be allotted to some other works. ROC can be allotted to the some other works. In my first few hour only I discussed, in the first hour of amendments only I discussed that this Company Amendment Act 2019 widely, is broadly enlarging the scope of or jurisdiction of MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Yes or no? And penalty provisions were somewhat changed. So out of these amendments, majority of the amendments are related to the ROC and regional director and penalties only. And we will look after one by one. One by one we will look after it. Second point, B point. The ROC shall not register a prospectus unless the requirements with respect to the registration are complied with and the prospectus is accompanied with written consent of all the persons named therein. So now point is no need of registration of prospectus. So again this provision is not required. Therefore the said provision was omitted. The said rule was omitted. On the face of each prospectus, actually it should be clearly indicated that a copy of prospectus has been delivered to the ROC for registration. No need of using the word registration, just filing. So ultimately by this amendment I can tell one thing, no need of registration of prospectus with ROC. You just file as if you are filing annual return, as if you are filing financial statements, just file prospectus with ROC. Now proceed for making public offer, proceed to make a public offer, proceed to make a public offer. Next one. So that's it. Next amendment. Public offer of securities to be in demat form. So what amendment came in this section, sir? See, the word public was omitted. The word public was omitted. See ma, every company making an offer and such other class or classes of public companies, actually public companies, shall issue the securities only in demat form by complying with the provisions of Depositories Act 1996 and regulations made thereunder. So section 299, section 29, if you read section 29 in detailed manner, so you will get this summary. So I will explain. So classified companies into two types, private company and public company. Private company and public company. So private company always offers, will private company offer shares to public? No. Private company just offers shares to the identified persons or to its existing members or to its employees, because the limit was restricted to 200 only. Yes or no? And it can't make public offer. Public company, it is having two options. It can offer securities to the identified persons or it can offer shares to the public. So public company, shares issued through public offer. Shares issued through public offer. Now that issue mandatorily, that should be, the shares should be mandatorily, should be in demat form. Demat form. Transfer of such securities, yes, here also mandatory to maintain securities in demat form. Mandatorily the securities must be held in demat form, but holding or optional. Holding is optional. So if you want to hold shares in physical form, yes, it was allowed, it was given, physical form is allowed. If you want to convert into demat form, you can convert. So this is the summary of section 29. So private company can maintain shares by physical form, and public company, the shares involved in the public offer or issued under public offer, those should be held in demat form. Issue should be in demat form. Transfer of such shares should be in demat form. Sir, what is the difference between issue and transfer? See, if company makes issue of shares, it will come under issue. Irrespective of the company, 2 or 3 persons are selling their holdings. Suppose I am having shares of ITC. I want money, I am selling the shares. That means shares are transferred from me to the buyer or to the transferee. Shares will be transferred. So transfer is the case happens in the secondary market. Issue is the case happened in the primary market. So only company will issue securities and transfer will happen, and it is happen only by the existing members only. So issue and transfer of securities should be held in demat form if such securities were offered under public offer. Whereas promoters, if they are holding shares, if they want to hold the shares, they can hold shares in physical form also, no problem. So what is the difference between physical form and demat form, sir? Very simple. See, what is there in my hand? This is a paper, materialized form, physical form. Anyone can take this, anyone can read this, anyone can hold this paper. But coming to dematerialization form, so there will be no matter, there is no material, there is no materialized form at all. It was there in our systems, it was there in our computer resources. For example, money, if you take money, cash in hand is a materialized form. Whatever the cash you are having in your hand is a materialized form. And the cash at the bank, suppose I am having some 10,000 rupees in my bank account. Now the 10,000 rupees I can't show you. I can show you using my online banking or using my internet banking, using my internet banking. Are you getting my point? So if you suddenly ask me, sir, denomination, can you tell denomination, 10,000 rupees note, denominations, please denominations, how many 500 rupee notes, how many 2,000 rupee notes, is it possible, sir? And no, it's not possible for me. It is not possible for me to show the denomination. So that is all about dematerialized form. So dematerialized form, and your money in cash in hand, you can transfer that cash in hand to the person manually, only through manually, either through courier or speed post or money order only, you can send the money to another person. But if money was held in Google, in demat form, then you can transfer that money. Even if the person is the resident of USA, simply Google Pay or Phone Pay or NEFT, RTGS, we can transfer that money. So securities also should be held in demat form. Actually, securities also should be held in demat form, but not for all the companies, only for 2 companies. First company, every company making offer of securities, making public offer of securities. And second one is every other class or classes of companies. Earlier it was public companies, now it was company. That means, yes, lawmaker wants to bring private company also part of under this definition, because company includes both private and public companies. So the lawmaker intention, why the lawmaker made amendments, sir? Because he wants to bring private company into the scope of demat form. So till now the central government has not prescribed any such companies whose security should be held in demat form. But in future, CG may prescribe. Hey, private companies like they may provide the list. Definitely they will provide the list. These company shares are to be held in demat form only. So it leads to transparency. There is no chance of forgery or fraud. Okay. So earlier dematerialization was restricted to only public companies. Now dematerialization was also available to the private companies also. Will be available to the private companies also. That is the only amendment under section 29. So section 29, earlier it covers only public companies, but now it covers all the companies. This is mandatory, This is mandatory. Every company making public offer, it is a mandatory. Next, such other class or classes of companies, as of now, CG has not prescribed any company. In future, they may prescribe. Shares of so and so companies should also be held in dematerialized form, like that. Next one, in case of other companies other than companies mentioned under section 29 subsection 1, ఇంకేముంటుంది? Already companies involved in the public offer covered and all companies are covered. So no need of this point actually. They may convert their securities into demat form or issued securities in physical form in accordance to the provisions of this act. Not required. Not required. Suppose central government has prescribed some companies like private companies engaged in mining, private companies engaged in e-commerce services. Only this kind of private companies, yes, the members should hold the securities in demat form. Like that CG may prescribe in future. If that happens, now only those companies are required to maintain demat form of securities, and all other companies, all other private companies, they can maintain securities in under physical form. But so far central government has not prescribed any company. Next, fourth point, civil liability for misstatements in the prospectus. This is not a bada amendment, this is not a big amendment. In this amendment, the word registration was replaced with filing of prospectus. That's it. This amendment was happened because of amendment happened in section 26. Section 26 amendment is the reason for amendment in section 35. See, if you look into the last line, the expert had not withdrawn his consent before the delivery of copy of prospectus with the registrar for registration. Now the word the delivery was deleted and filing of copy of prospectus with the ROC. So registration word is deleted and just filing of prospectus, filing of copy of prospectus with ROC, this word was added. Nothing more than that. Nothing more than that. So these are the three changes in the prospectus. One is section 42, second one is demat form, and third one is matters relating to the prospectus. Earlier the prospectus must be registered, now the prospectus is to be filed with ROC. That's it. Next one next one is about share capital. Share capital. Very small amendments, very small amendments. As we already discussed, Companies Amendment Act 2019 mainly focused on ROC, regional director powers, and penalties. So one of the example for penalties is this point. Prohibition on issue of shares at discount. If any company fails to comply with provisions of section 53, so what is meant by section 53? No company is allowed to issue shares at a discount except 2 points. What are those 2 points? One is sweat equity shares, and the second one is companies prepared an arrangement which was approved under voluntary debt restructuring scheme by the Reserve Bank of India. Is it clear? So according to the debt restructuring scheme or statutory resolution plan, if RBI gives approval to you, then you can issue shares at a discount. Only 2 exceptions are there for that general rule. What is the general rule? Company, if it issues shares at discount, it is void ab initio. However, there are 2 exceptions. One is issue of sweat equity shares, and second one is issue of shares by those companies who got approved from Reserve Bank of India as per the debt restructuring scheme or statutory resolution plan. Except in these 2 cases, if company is making a issue of shares, if company is offering shares at a discount, then the company and officer in default are punishable with the penalty. Sir, penalty, how much is the penalty, sir? Dekho, if any company fails to comply with the provisions of section 53, such company and every officer who is in default shall be liable to a penalty which may extend to an amount equal to the amount raised through issue of shares at a discount, or 5 lakhs whichever is less, or 5 lakhs whichever is less. I repeat, how much is the penalty, sir? Amount equal to amount raised through issue of shares at discount. Suppose issue of shares at discount, through issue I collected some 8 lakhs. After discount I collected some 8 lakhs, and maximum penalty how much? 5 lakhs. So whichever is lower, that means 5 lakhs is the punishment. Sir, suppose through issue of shares at discount I collected only 2 lakhs, sir. By issuing shares at discount I collected only some 2 lakhs, sir. Now how much is the penalty, sir? Amount collected through issue of shares at discount or rupees 5 lakhs, whichever is less. So the answer is amount collected, so 2 lakhs. Next one, the company shall be liable to refund all monies received with interest at the rate of 12% per annum from the date of issue of such shares to the persons to whom such shares have been issued. So to the persons ఎవరికి లైబుల్ అండి? టు ద పర్సన్స్ టు హూమ్ షేర్స్ హ్యావ్ బీన్ ఇష్యూడ్. సో దే ఆర్ లైబుల్ టు పే అమౌంట్. ఫస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ఆల్ రిఫండ్. In addition to refund, interest also. Interest also. How much is the interest? Interest at the rate of 12% per annum. That means 1 rupee per month. Sorry, 1 rupee per month. So this is per annum. This is per annum. Next one. So again there is an amendment regarding punishments. That is second point. Notice to be given to the ROC for alteration of share capital. Yes, you all know about alteration of share capital. Alteration of share capital. In how many ways the capital clause gets altered? In 5 ways. What are the 5 ways, Andy? Increase in authorized share capital. So increase, decrease. Consolidation, subdivision. Consolidation and subdivision. Are you all getting my point? Consolidation and subdivision. Last one is conversion of shares into stock or reconversion of stock into the shares. So they will tell like vice versa. Vice versa means as it is reverse. Okay, so alteration of share capital is happen in 5 ways. Increase of share capital, decrease of share capital, consolidation and division of share capital, subdivision of share capital, and then conversion of shares into stock and reconversion of stock into the shares. So whenever company alters the share capital, the same should be communicated with ROC in form number SH7 within 30 days of alteration. Within 30 days of alteration, yes, company should intimate the same to the ROC, because whenever company is making an amendment to MOA and AOA, the same has to be communicated with ROC, exception there is one point. In case of one person company, if there is change in nominee, it won't be treated as alteration of MOA. So in that case only no need to communicate. I mean no need to file a altered MOA with ROC. But listen my dear students. So whenever you are making an amendment to MOA and AOA, the same should be communicated with ROC. The same should be communicated with ROC. Sir, if delay happens, then what are the consequences? Consequences of contravention. The company and every officer who is in default shall be liable to a penalty of minimum 1,000 for each date during which such default continues. I said it should be filed within 30 days. The form should be filed within 30 days. But company filed on 50th day. That means how many days delay was happened? 20 days delay was happened. 20 into 1,000, 20,000 is the penalty to the company officer in default. Sir, who is the officer in default? See, is the person responsible for those return filing. Any designated director. If there is no such designated director, then all the board of directors, then all the executive board of directors. Is it clear? So if there is a executive person, that person will be held liable, officer in default. If there is no such person, all the directors will be held punishable. So how much is the punishment? 1,000 per day, maximum 5 lakhs. Suppose sir, if delay happens 500 days, 500 into 1,000, 5 lakhs. If delay happens up to 1,000 days, 1,000 into 1,000, 10 lakhs. But the punishment was already restricted to 5 lakhs only. The punishment was already restricted to 5 lakhs only. So I think you are able to follow me. So these are the two amendments relating to the punishments. And there is one more amendment from this chapter, that is conditions for issue of shares with differential rights. So welcome back. Conditions for issue of equity shares with differential voting rights. You know, for issue of equity shares with differential rights, the company has to satisfy some conditions. AOA authorization, members approval by way of ordinary resolution. If the company is listed company, or the company securities, if they are listed on the recognized stock exchange, company's equity shares listed on the recognized stock exchange, in that company has to pass ordinary resolution using postal ballot mechanism. Okay. Next one, the company should satisfy some more conditions, like for the last 3 years it should have distributable profits. Next one, company should not have defaulted with respect to some points like time defaults, 5 years defaults, which are there in our material. But there are 2 amendments in this particular area. Conditions to be satisfied. In the total conditions, 2 amendments are there. So amendment number 1, come on, look into the material. The shares with the differential voting rights shall not exceed 26% of total post-issue paid up share capital, including equity shares with the differential rights issued at any point of time.
Now the amendment was, it was removed. In the place of 26% of total post issue paid up share capital, 74% of voting power was replaced. See ma, earlier, suppose this is my total share capital. My total share capital, for example, 100. In this, ordinary shares shall constitute 74%, and differential voting rights, differential rights, it's not differential voting rights, differential rights shall constitute 26%, it's like that. So 26%. Earlier, DVR shall not exceed 26% of total paid up share capital of the company. But now what happened, sir? This was changed. Actually, equity share capital, out of total paid up equity share capital, differential rate shall not constitute 26%. This is the maximum limit. Now after amendment, it looks like this. After amendment, it looks like this. Instead of paid up share capital, paid up equity share capital, post issue paid up equity share capital, exactly. So in the place of paid up equity share capital, sir cut చేసేసాను మళ్ళీ ఫస్ట్ నుంచి చెప్తాను ఇంత 2 minutes అయింది. So differential voting rights, there is amendment in the differential voting rights ma. In order to issue equity shares with differential rights, the company has to satisfy some conditions like articles of association authorization, and members have to give approval by way of ordinary resolution. If the company is a listed company, that means whose shares, equity shares are listed on the recognized stock exchange, that company has to pass ordinary resolution using postal ballot voting system. And then the company should have continuous distributable profits of 3 years. And the DVRs shall not exceed, differential rights shall not exceed 26% of total paid up equity post issue paid up equity share capital. Now there are 2 amendments in this particular differential rights. What are those amendments, sir? Previously, equity shares with normal rights, equity shares, differential rights, and total paid up equity share capital. Paid up equity share capital. Suppose if you take paid up equity share capital as 100, the DVR shall not exceed 26% of the post issue paid up equity share capital. That means the balancing figure, normal rights should be 74%, like this. This is old provision, but there was an amendment. Sir, what is that amendment? Here, instead of paid up equity share capital, they considered voting power. Suppose the company voting power was 100%. Now equity shares with differential voting rights, differential rights, it should not exceed 74%, and equity shares with normal rights is 26. So DVRs, differential rights shall not exceed 74% of paid up equity share capital. No, paid up equity share capital was replaced with voting power. So 74% of total voting power. So DRs, differential rights, shall not exceed 74% of total voting power. Sir, how can we calculate, sir? It's very simple, ma'am. Suppose if you observe a company, company, it was having a equity share capital, normal rights. For example, how many shares, sir? See ma, 10,000 shares. And the speciality is 10,000 shares into 1 vote. 1 share, 1 vote. Under poll, 1 share equal to 1 vote. So how many votes are ante? 10,000 votes. Now company, how many shares can company issue differential rights? How many shares can a company offer equity shares under differential rights? Now this is the question. Sir, how can we calculate? Yes. What is the speciality of this differential rights? What is the speciality of differential rights? Sir, this differential rights speciality, 1 share equal to 10 votes, sir. Differential rights means dividend will be more, voting will be less, or more voting, less dividend. So they are not equal to normal rights. And under normal rights, every share is entitled to equal dividend. Every share is entitled to 1 vote. But under differential rights, the voting and dividend gets fluctuated. For example, I am considering the example 1 share equal to 10 votes. How many votes, ma? 10 votes. So how many DVRs can a company issue? So we don't know the figure, so we assume it as X. And we are having the equation. So voting power from differential rights is less than or equal to 74% of total voting power. So DR's voting power. So number of shares we already assumed X. X into each share is entitled to 10 votes. And we make it as equal. So we are solving the problem. So 74% of total voting power means voting power from normal rights plus voting power from differential rights. That means 74% of normal rights, already I solved it, 10,000 votes plus voting power of DRs. So X into 10 votes, X into 10 votes. That means 7400 plus 7.4x. So 10x minus 7.4x equal to 7400. That implies x equal to 7400 divided by 2.6. How much we get? 7400 divided by so we get 2846.15. so round it off, because we can't issue shares in fractions, and round it off, 2846 shares. You can solve it, ma. You can solve it. Suppose verification, you need verification, or else your doubt won't get satisfied. See, normal rights, how many shares? 10,000 shares into 1 vote, so 10,000 votes. Differential rights, how many shares? 2846 into 10 votes per share, and so 28,460 votes. Total 38,460. If you convert into percentage, yes. So 28,460 divided by 38,460, and we get the answer is 73.9989%. So which means less than 74% of total voting power, less than or equal to, less than or equal to, because the point was shall not exceed. So previously it was 26% of paid up equity share capital, post issue paid up equity share capital, but now the amendment was instead of paid up equity share capital, voting power was given, and in that voting power DVR shall not exceed 74% of total voting power. So this concept is not famous in India, but in abroad this concept is very famous. So Facebook company, it issues DVRs and differential rights, and in India hardly some few companies issued DRs. The first company I guess is Tata Motors in the year 2008. In order to acquire Jaguar Land Rover companies, they issued differential rights. You can find the company share price in Money Control also. And the second amendment is previously the company should have consistent track record of distributable profits for the last 3 years. Now this point was omitted, because if you use this point, if the point is there in the material, if the point is there in the act, it creates hurdle to the startup companies. For example, a company was started in the year 2019-20. This company is planning to issue DVRs in the year 2021-22. Is it possible? No, because it has to wait for 3 years. The last 3 years, the company has to prove consistent distributable profits, track record of distributable profits. So it creates hurdle to these startup companies. That's the reason the lawmaker observed this difficulty and he eliminated the point. So with this, we completed a share capital, amendments related to share capital. Now proceed to membership. Small topic, you need to know. Beneficial owner is different compared to significant beneficial. Sir, what is the concept of beneficial owner or significant beneficial owner? You know, suppose a company is making allotment of security. Company issued a prospectus inviting offers from the public. One person, particularly Mr. Anil, and another person Prasad. Actually, Prasad was banned, and Prasad was banned in India. So Prasad has no entry in India because Prasad might be some terrorist. So Prasad want to subscribe the shares of CO Limited. Prasad want to subscribe the shares of CO Limited. So it is not possible because of some reasons. Court banned Prasad from entering into the India. Prasad cannot purchase a single share in the CO Limited. That's why what Prasad is doing. So Prasad transferring money to Anil and asking Anil to make investment in these shares. Now company is making allotment of shares in the name of Anil, and Anil is the legal owner. Actually Anil is the legal owner because shares are issued in the name of Anil. Whereas who is the beneficial owner of this shares, sir? Ante Prasad. You know, Under section 18(9), the legal owner as well as beneficial owner, they has to communicate with the company using different forms. For example, Anil has to communicate in MGT4, Prasad has to communicate in MGT5. So Anil has to say, I am the legal owner, but the beneficial owner is Prasad. And Prasad has to say, I am the beneficial owner for the shares held by Anil. Now company has to communicate the same with ROC in form number MGT6. So this should happen within 30 days, and every transaction, every form filing with a company and form filing with ROC, it should happen within 30 days. This is the concept of 18(9), that is beneficial owners. Then what is meant by significant beneficial owners, sir? See, Prasad actually is a beneficial owner, but in one instance, Prasad will become significant beneficial owner. When, sir? Suppose his holding interest is exceeding greater than or equal to 10% of company, sorry, 10% of paid up equity share capital, 10% of the capital. If the holding interest is exceeding, sorry, greater than or equal to 10%, then the Prasad will become significant beneficial owner. Now Prasad will become significant beneficial owner. This is the difference. That means significant beneficial owner means 1% was prescribed under company rules, and company rules prescribed some certain percentage. As of now, it is a 10%. As of now, it is a 10%. So if any person holding beneficial interest in excess of 10%, sorry, 10% or more, in that case, he will be treated as significant benefit. He will be treated as significant beneficial owner. So what amendment came into the picture, sir? So it is the duty of the company to identify significant beneficial owners. So lawmaker imposed a responsibility on the company. It is the responsibility of company to identify significant beneficial owners. Every company shall take necessary steps to identify an individual who is a significant beneficial owner in relation to the company, require him to comply with the provisions of this section. So company should carry some kind of investigation activities in finding out the significant beneficial owner. Sir, how they will carry? It's none of our business. We need to understand the provision. Company may observe, so who is claiming the dividends? Like that. Suppose if legal owner is claiming the dividends, then no problem. Legal owner might be beneficial owner. So legal owner is one person, but the dividends were claimed by some other person. Now company has to examine, well, this is the legal owner, he is the legal owner, this person is the legal owner, why that person is claiming the dividends? Is there any beneficial interest to that person? Like that, company should investigate. That is a responsibility given on the company. Next one, application to NCLT for lifting of the restrictions. You know, company will ask the significant beneficial owner as well as a legal owner to comply with the provisions of section 90. If significant beneficial owner and legal owner does not comply the notice of company, now company will file a petition with NCLT. Hello NCLT, these persons are not complying with section 90. Now you come and do something. Now what NCLT will do? It will exercise lien right on the rights of the shares. So the persons cannot sell the shares. Those shares will be something like seized. So NCLT may put some restrictions on this kind of activities. Now either legal owner or significant beneficial owner, if they request NCLT, now NCLT may lift these restrictions. The company or the person aggrieved by the order of tribunal may make an application to the tribunal for relaxation or lifting of the restrictions placed by the tribunal, but such an application must be made within a period of 1 year from the date of such order. This point was newly inserted. Such application should be filed within a period of 1 year from the date of such order. However, if no such application has been filed within a period of 1 year from the date of the order of placing such restrictions, such shares shall be transferred without any restrictions to the authority constituted under IEPF. You all know about IEPF, Investor Education and Protection Fund. Next one, and powers of CG to make rules. So regarding section 90, it is a CG, central government is having full powers to frame the rules in finding out how to find out the significant beneficial owner, what type of forms the company has to file with NCLT or ROC. All these rules and regulations will be framed by CG. The Parliament has given power to the CG in framing the rules and regulations related to section number 90, that is identifying significant beneficial owner. Next one, punishment for failure to make a declaration. You can go through it, and there is no amendment. You just read it. So imprisonment up to 1 year, and a minimum fine, minimum 1 lakh, maximum 10 lakhs or both. So if the failure is continuing one, that means NCLT asked you to comply with the requirements of this section. again you are not fulfilling this order. Now this will be treated as continuing default. For continuing default, the punishment with the further fine up to 1000 for every day after the first during which the failure continues. Next one, a person shall be liable to action under section 447 if he willfully furnishes any false or incorrect information. These conditions will apply for non-disclosure of information, non-disclosure. And you know, here you disclose but you made false disclosure. So lawmaker will, so దేనైనా సహిస్తాడండి lawmaker, but if you are making false information, he don't agree and section 447 is applicable to you. Next one, punishment for failure to maintain registers, and the amendment was underlined point andi, underlined point. So see, if a company fails to maintain a register or denies inspection of the register or fails to file a return of significant beneficial owners of the company and changes therein with ROC, or fails to take necessary steps to identify significant beneficial owners, here the amendment was this point. Here the amendment is fails to take necessary steps and fails to take necessary steps. So no need to worry, this amendment was already we discussed, and actually it is the duty of the company. If you read first point, if you read first point, so in that first point it was very clear, company has to take reasonable steps in finding out the who the beneficial, significant beneficial owner. If company fails to fails to observe those steps, now company will be punishable under this section also. So minimum fine 10 lakhs, maximum 50 lakhs if in case it is a first offense. But if it is a continuing default, daily 1000 penalty, daily 1000 penalty, that's it. Next one, coming to registration of charges, coming to registration of charges, very simple amendment, very simple amendment. This was already discussed in your classroom, but those who are reading 41st edition, for them I'm going to explain one more time. I'm going to explain one more time. So you all know about charge andi. So charge means, so company at the time of borrowing money, what company will do? It will execute a security, it will give a property, it will give a property or asset. I will call it as a property, I'll call it as a property, it is a property. Company will give property to the lender, and here some kind of mortgage deed will be executed. So some kind of charge was created. Charge is nothing but interest was created over the property, and that interest was transferred to the lender. You know, here the company is called borrower. We all know that borrower or company only, but the lender is called as charge holder, charge holder, and the property, charged property, yes. Now it is the duty of the company to register that charge with ROC. If the charge is not registered, then this is not a secured debt, it is treated as unsecured debt. Whatever the charge you created, it will become void if it not registered. So if it is unregistered, then it is void. So దానికి అర్థమే లేదు, ఆ చార్జ్ రిజిస్టరే కానట్టు. కానీ the charge will be valid only if it is registered with ROC, registered with ROC. Now let's discuss what are the time limits for registration of the charge. Registration of the charge, देखो, registration of charge. So charge created, charge documents created before 2nd November 2018. Our company amendment ordinance, first ordinance, actually company amendment ordinance 2018 came into effect, came into force with effect from 2nd November 2018, and a charge created on or after 2nd November 2018. So what is the change, sir? What is the change? So listen carefully, it's very useful. So company has to file charge documents with ROC, CHG1 or 9, whatever it might be. So based on the loan or based on the loans, based on the debentures, the charge form is applicable andi. So within how many days, sir? Actually within 30 days of creation of charge, within 30 days of creation of charge. Sir, failed, sir, failed. So suppose if you file within 30 days of creation of charge, then you need to pay just normal fees. Normal fees is sufficient, normal fees is sufficient. But if you fail to create charge within 30 days, no problem, additional 270 days are given, additional 270. Additional 270 means existing 30 plus 270, that means 300 days. 300 days after creation of charge, but with additional fees, It's like a penalty. We call it as additional fees, but actually it is a penalty. You know what amendment came into picture? I'm using different color. What amendment? Suppose, sir, this one also failed, additional 270 days actually. So this one also failed. Now ROC is giving a one-time relaxation to you. What is that relaxation, sir? So from 2nd November 2018, I am going to give 6 months time. Within 6 months, file them. Within 6 months, from 2nd November 2018, file all pending charges. Sorry, register, not filing. Register all pending charges. Just normal fees plus additional fees is sufficient. Sir, what about the charges created? What about the charges created on or after 2nd November 2018? So this is also amendment. See here, the company has to register charge documents with ROC within 30 days of creation. Now lawmaker observed, why additional 300 days? Why additional 300 days? Unnecessarily why additional 270 days? What is the reason behind that much delay? 30 plus 270. First 30 like this, next 270. Why? What is the reason? So lawmaker observed and he made an amendment. So no extra 270 days, only extra 30 days will be given. 30 days after failure of first one, after failure of first date. So in case failed, then additional 30 days. But here with normal fees as well as additional fees. Sir, I failed to satisfy this time limit also, sir. Now with the permission of ROC, additional 60 days will be given. 60 days after second date. That means net how many days were provided? How many days given, sir? Net how many days? See, first 30 days, next extra 30 days with just additional fees. But with the approval of ROC, again 60 days were given. So total how many days, sir? 120 days. But earlier it was 300 days. The 300 days time gap was reduced to 120. Lawmaker observed only one point. Why additional 270 days? What is the reason? Why we need to give total 300 days? No, we can't delay that much. We can't provide that much delay. So company lawmaker observed and he reduced the time gap. Normal fees first 30 days, just 600 rupees. With additional fees next 30 days. You fail to satisfy two limits, then ROC, with the approval of ROC, additional 60 days will be given. So net within 120 days you have to register the charge. Sir, if we fail all these dates, sir, then go to CG and cry. So company should make an application with central government for condonation of the delay, which is under section 87. Under section 87. So that is the amendment, and just go through it because it's a old amendment. This amendment was applicable with effect from November 2018 exams. November 2019 exams. This amendment is related to November 2019 exams, and May 20 already cancelled. Now it is November 20. So definitely this amendment will be asked in your attempt. So be thorough with that amendment, and next one, punishment as usual. So new punishments were prescribed. Just go through the punishments, and so fine of minimum 1 lakh, fine of maximum fine 10 lakhs to the company. So one thing I should give clarity, fine versus penalty. Fine is something which will be levied only with the court order. Penalty, ROC will directly levy the penalty. Based on the delay. But fine is something which will be imposed by court or concerned authority, might be tribunal also. Is it clear? For company's point of view, each and every matter will be dealt by tribunal only. So National Company Law Tribunal, if you are agreed with NCLT order, you can go to NCLAT, National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. If you are agreed with NCLAT also, then you can go to Supreme Court. Next one, liability for willful defaults, you will be punishable under section 447. Simply remember one point, if any false information was published leading to fraud, మే హూనా నేనున్నాను నేను విన్నాను అంటూ సెక్షన్ 447 వచ్చేస్తుంది. సెక్షన్ 447 ఫ్రాడ్ సెక్షన్ ఈజ్ అప్లికబుల్ వెన్ ఎవర్ ఇట్ లిజన్స్. సి చూడండి, ఫాల్స్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్, ఇన్కరెక్ట్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్, knowingly suppresses material information. So incorrect information means I am providing the data which is incorrect. Suppressing information means I am providing data but it is incomplete, either incorrect or incomplete, which is leading to the fraud. Then you are punishable under section 447. Then section 87 also is the powers of the government and powers of government. You can read it on your own, nothing to explain and so if any omission related to the payment of the charges or satisfaction of the charges, or if there is a delay in registration of the charges, in those cases you can file an application with, see, registration of charges, modification of charge, satisfaction of charge. If you make any omission in filing, that means you are not filing within the due dates, then ROC will not do anything. Then you have to file application with CG. You know one thing, CG is having n number of responsibilities ma. If you read rules, you will get a point. CG from time to time it will either authorize regional director or it will authorize ROC for doing such kind of activities. Delegation of authority is 100% possible, but what is there in our book, you just read it. CG means CG only, ROC means ROC only. I said only for knowledge point of view. Now powers of CG, conditions for exercise of powers by CG, you can read it, you can go through it, no problem. Rectification on register, so all these points are related to powers of CG only, powers of CG only. Next one, management and administration. Management and administration, see section 110 postal ballot, section 110 postal ballot. Earlier there were 10 transactions or 10 businesses for which postal ballot is compulsory, like issue of DV, issue of shares with differential rights, conversion of companies public to private. Next one, alteration of object clause, alteration of object stated in the prospectus. Okay, next so buyback of securities, like these 10 points were stated. For these 10 businesses postal ballot is compulsory. But lawmaker observed one thing, postal ballot, so company has to print out the ballot papers, company has to send the ballot papers to the registered shareholders, registered shareholders should write it, I mean should fill the form, and again the company, I mean the registered shareholder has to send back to the company, again the member has to send back to the company. So they observed this is a lengthy process and a paper was involved in it. So what lawmaker finally decided, that those 10 businesses for which postal ballot is compulsory, for them lawmaker gave bumper offer. A company, if you want to conduct electronic e-voting, that means electronic voting means if you want to exercise remote e-voting for all those 10 businesses, we are allowing you. So no need of postal ballot. So that means you are having two alternatives. For those 10 businesses, you are having two alternatives. Alternative one, you can use postal ballot as usual, or else you can substitute postal ballot with remote electronic voting, means remote e-voting, that means online voting. So that's it. And so it may be transacted at a general meeting by a company which is required to provide the facility to the members to vote by electronic means under section 108 in the manner provided in that section. So next one, annual returns penalties. And in my first lecture I said what amendments came in this Companies Amendment Act 2019. First one, Companies Act. In Companies Act various penalties were liberalized, that means there is slight reduction in the penalties. And second thing, enhancement of regional director powers, enhancement of ROC powers. So these 3 points are the crucial for all these amendments. And as a part of it, yes, annual returns penalties were given like this. See, this is a penalty and you all know about penalty. Penalty is something which ROC will directly levy. So if a company fails to file its annual return before the expiry of the period, so annual return, within how many days annual return has to be filed? Andy? Within 60 days? Within the 60 days of conduct of AGM. Within 60 days of conduct of AGM. So within 60 days of conduct of annual general meeting, the company has to file annual returns with ROC. If you make any delay, then ROC will charge you penalty. How much, sir? ad hoc penalty 50,000, and daily for every day delay how much penalties are 100 rupees. For each day you make delay 100 rupees is the penalty. So practically this penalty was levied by ROC up to some March 22nd I guess, but after once lockdown was implemented, ROC removed, I mean central government removed all these penalties and okay, whatever it might be, just go through the penalties and explanatory statement to be annexed to the notice. In case of default, every promoter, director, manager or other KMP of the company who is in default shall be liable to a penalty of 50,000 or 5 times the amount of benefit accruing. Suppose without disclosure in the explanatory statement, if there is a related party transaction and members approve related party transaction, from that related party transaction, if promoter or director or manager or their relatives are earning some benefits, so they are undisclosed benefits, actually they are undisclosed benefits, for those undisclosed benefits they will become trustee to the company, they have to refund the same to the company, plus they are liable for punishment. What punishments are? So minimum 50,000 or 5 times of the amount of benefit accruing to the promoter, director, manager or KMP. Suppose if 2 crores amount was involved in that benefit, so 5 into 2 crores, that means 10 crores. 10 crores is the maximum punishment that will be awarded to the person who make default. Next one, same andi, punishments andi. So resolutions to be filed with ROC. In case of delay, penalty of 1 lakh rupee, and every day for each day default 500 rupees, but maximum it was restricted to 25 lakhs. Officer in default 50,000 rupees minimum penalty, and for each day 500 rupees, and it was subject to a maximum of 5 lakhs. Report on AGM, section 121. So company has to prepare report on AGM and it is to be filed with ROC. In case of delay, yes, such company and officer in default are punishable with the penalties. You just go through the amounts only. So amounts were changed. Get updated with those amounts. Is it clear? Next one, constitution of NFRA, National Financial Reporting Authority. So after happening of PNB scam, Punjab National Bank scam, so government decided there should be an authority regarding issue of standards on auditing, accounting standards, cost accounting standards, secretarial standards, and this will look after all these institutes. So Institute of Chartered Accountants, that means members of ICA. So central government is of opinion that there should be some authority to regulate the practicing chartered accountants, to regulate the practicing cost accountants, like that. And NFRA is exclusively meant for accounting standards, standards on auditing, and many other works and many other tasks were allotted to the NFRA. So National Financial Reporting Authority, who will constitute CG. No, CG, by passing a government order, it will order for NFRA. So in that NFRA, there will be members, chairman, and such other members not exceeding 15. So maximum 15, either part-time or full-time. So one chairman plus 15. This is the maximum strength of NFRA. So chairman shall be the person of eminence and having expertise in accountancy, auditing, financial law. Finance or law. He should have expertise knowledge in these subjects, and the chairman shall be appointed by CG. And divisions of NFRA. So NFRA, so this point was amended, actually this point was newly inserted, and NFRA shall perform its functions through such divisions as may be prescribed. So time to time CG will issue the rules, circulars, and so according to, CG will make rules, according to that rules divisions will be formed like this. NFRA, exclusively accounts division, exclusively standards on auditing division, cost accountancy division, secretarial standards division, like that. It will break down the duties. It will not break down it will segregate the duties. So some duties to one division, some duties to one division, like that. It will segregate the duties. Next one, functions of NFRA. You can go through it. This is old amendment. The readers of 41st edition, you have to see this point. So recently who joined for 43rd edition or 42nd edition, for them this was already taught in the class. So you just go through it, and there is one more amendment. See this amendment, that is normal font size, normal font size. Debarring the member or the firm from being appointed as an auditor or internal auditor or undertaking any audit in respect of financial statements or internal audit of functions and activities of any company or a body corporate, or performing any valuation as provided under section 2 for a minimum of 6 months or such higher period but not exceeding 10 years as may be determined by National Financial Reporting Authority. National Financial You know, if any member or a firm was identified which was involved in the scam or which was involved in doing some fraudulent practices, now NFRA is having authority to ban them for minimum 6 months, maximum 10 years. You know, that banned, I mean, those who are prohibited from doing practice, they can perform certain tasks. They can perform certain tasks. So amendment was some kind of relaxation. They will not be allowed to practice. They can't accept audit engagements, they can't sign the audit reports, but they can practice some other works which does not require expression of opinion, like taking internal audit assignments, performing valuation reports. For that, this person was allowed. So this person will be banned only for statutory auditor services, statutory audit services. That point was mentioned. Next, everything, just give overview, and from examination point of view, I think this is not a relevant question, but go through the limits, So wherever you find the limits, just try to write at one place. Next one. So board report. So board report, a new point was inserted. This kind of amendments are applicable exclusively for November 2020 exam. So italic, they are applicable to November 2019. Normal font size, they are applicable to May 2020, and the grey colored matter is applicable for November 2020. This is a new amendment. So in the board report, a new responsibility was inserted. What is that point? So sorry, one new point was inserted. What is that point? A statement regarding opinion of the board. So board expression of opinion regarding integrity, expertise and experience, including the proficiency of the independent directors. Now, board of directors should express opinion about the independent directors, how much they are having expertise, knowledge. It's not like measurement, 85%, 90%, 60%, it's not like that. But board of directors will give, okay, our independent directors are expertise and they are having experience in respective fields, they are with integrity, like that they have to make a disclosure. Earlier this kind of disclosure was not there, but here now a new point was introduced. What is that new point, sir? Disclosure about integrity, experience and expertise of the independent directors appointed during the year. Repeat, appointed during the year. Now, those who are appointed in the last year, no need to report those points, but who are appointed during the year, the board of directors should express an opinion. Next one, CSR activities, CSR activities, you know. This point was newly. So if a company is making contribution to this fund, this is eligible for CSR expenditure. You all know about CSR. If a company's turnover is for 1,000 crores or more, paid up net worth 500 crores or more, paid up share, next one, net profit 5 crores or more. If any one of the condition is satisfied, then company has to constitute CSR committee and company has to spend at least 2% of average profits on the CSR activities. So if a company is making contribution to the Prime Minister National Relief Fund, and the words are replaced like this. So Prime Minister Citizenship Assistance and Relief in Emergency Situation Fund. Actually, so it was Prime Minister National Relief Fund. In the place of Prime Minister National Fund, it was continued like this. Prime Minister National Relief Fund to patu PM Cares Fund shall be inserted. That means, see, the complete name was PM National Relief Fund. So PM Cares Fund. So Citizenship Assistance and Relief in Emergency Situations because of COVID implication. So if company is making, repeat, if company is making contribution to this fund also, PM Cares Fund, then it will be included in CSR expenditure. That means 2%. 2% lo ee amount ni kuda include chestaru. Then you know, earlier the point was like this: contribution of funds provided to the contribution or funds provided, anything is same. Contribution to the technology incubators located within academic institutions which are approved by CG. But this was amended like this. So contribution to the incubators funded by CG or SG or any agency or public sector or undertaking of CG or CG, like this. That means earlier if CG or SG is giving approval to the incubator and you are making contribution to incubator, okay, it is sufficient that you complete CSR. But now don't contribute to the whatever incubators you find, you donate or you contribute to the incubators which are funded by the central government or state government. That means simply government wants to eliminate private sector incubators. Sir, what is meant by incubator? Sir, we just born a baby, he will be put in the incubator. Not that incubator. Incubator is a facility. So incubator will help the startup companies. It will fund the startup companies. It will identify the startup companies which require funds. So the ideology of the startup companies is very good, but they are not having sufficient funds. Now these incubators will provide facility to them. They are like venture capitalists, but a special categorization was given. So they are not actually venture capitalists, but incubators will identify the startup companies and they will provide fund to the startup companies. So if you are making contribution to incubators, it will be treated as CSR expenditure earlier, but now you have to make contribution to the incubators which are funded by or which are contributed by SG or CG or some government authorities only. So don't make contribution to private sector incubators. If you make contribution to private sector incubators, those will not be considered in CSR expenses. So that is the amendment, and a new point was inserted, that is disaster management including relief, rehabilitation, reconstruction activities. If you make a contribution to this one also, it will be accountable in CSR. Next, copies of financial statements, copies of financial statements. You have to file copies of financial statements within 30 days of annual general meeting, conclusion of annual general meeting, or due date of AGM, whichever is earlier actually. So if you make any delay, then you will be punishable. Company is punishable and persons in default. So MD, CFO, in the options of MD, CFO. Suppose the company is not having MD, CFO. In that case, person charged by the board. So particular person, board of directors said, oh, Mr. X, he will be the person looking after the financial matters. No, that person will be punishable. If no person was charged, then all board of directors, all the directors, that means board of directors are punishable. So amounts, you just go through it. Amounts, you just go through it. And punishment for fraud. Punishment for fraud. So this thing I need to explain, and I'll explain it. So section 447, a small amendment, and it is related to fraud section. Punishment for. Here fraud is classified into two types, and fraud which is greater magnitude. Sir, how can we decide fraud greater magnitude? Very simple. See, fraud greater than or equal to option A 10 lakhs, option B 1% of turnover, whichever is lower. So actual fraud amount how much? Now compare it with 10 lakhs or 1% of company's turnover, whichever is lower. Suppose company turnover was 1 crore. 1 crore into 1%, it is 1 lakh. 1 lakh or 10 lakhs, whichever is lower, 1 lakh. Company turnover was 1000 crores. 1000 crores into 1%, it will be 10 crores. Now compare 10 crores with 10 lakhs, whichever is lower, 10 lakhs. So now compare fraud amount with the resulting figure. Okay. And second one, fraud is of lesser magnitude. So how we can calculate fraud less than option A 10 lakhs, option B 1% of turnover, whichever is lower. Now punishment will be like this, and the punishment will be like this. See, listen carefully. Greater magnitude, no public interest affected. Sir, public interest was not affected. Public funds are very safe. They people committed fraud internally, and they are making misappropriation of assets internally. There is no risk to the public interest. In case of no public interest, then the punishment will be fine, minimum fraud amount, amount involved in the fraud, maximum 3 times of the fraud amount, So how much amount was involved in the fraud? Minimum fraud amount, maximum 3 times of the fraud. And you know, end, not R and D, end, imprisonment, minimum 6 months, maximum 10 years. But suppose, sir, if public interest was affected, and fraud of lesser magnitude, the same consequences, same consequence. Public interest was affected, then don't verify greater magnitude or lesser magnitude. If public interest is affected, then the consequences will be. So listen carefully. So fine, there is no change in fine and minimum fraud amount involved in the fraud, maximum 3 times of the fraud amount, and imprisonment minimum 3 years or 34. You will get confused. 3 years and maximum 10 years. So amendment was came in this picture and amendment anta ekkada undi sir ante no public interest case lo amendment ochindi. Sir, what is the amendment, sir? See ma, either imprisonment up to 5 years or fine up to 50 lakhs. This is the amendment and previous it was not 50 lakhs and it was some other figure, 50 lakhs or both. So this is all about section 447. This is all about section 447. Is it clear now? You can take screenshot of it. Fatafat. So next one, other laws. No more amendments and equal amendments same level because of article 3 abolition of article 370A. So the word excluding Jammu and Kashmir was removed. Now all the acts are applicable to whole of India including Jammu and Kashmir. Very simple amendment. And section 143A, power of interim compensation. I'll explain it, don't worry. The next one, so just last 10 minutes we are going to conclude and so listen carefully. An act, power of interim compensation. This is section 130 regarding 138, but 143A newly introduced, but this is all about section 138. Sir, what actually happens, sir? We are going to discuss. Sir, so amendment in the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881 is related to interim compensation. We all know about section 138 and section 138. You know, the drawer of the check gave a check to the payee, and if this check is dishonored, due to insufficiency of funds, and the drawer issued this check for consideration for discharge of legally enforceable debt, and the check is dishonored due to insufficiency of funds, payee has to communicate the same with the drawer within 30 days of receipt of notice from banker, and drawer should make payment within 15 days. If drawer fails to make payment within 15 days, then payee has to file an application with court under section 138 within 1 month after the expiry of 15 days. All these terms and time limits were already explained in the classroom itself. But what amendment came in this picture, sir? Suppose one person, he issued a check to the payee, for example, not drawer, payee. So Ravi gave a check to Anil. Ravi gave a check to Anil. Okay, and this check was dishonored due to insufficiency of funds. Thereby section 138 is attracted. Now Anil went to court. Anil is the applicant, so Anil filed an petition against Ravi. Now Ravi also came to the court. Now Ravi is making argument, sir, this check I issued not for discharging legally enforceable debt. Anil is saying, no sir, the check was issued for discharging legally enforceable debt. Now arguments are going on. Definitely it will take some time. It will take some days or some weeks or some months or some years to settle this order. So meanwhile, yes, what court can do? Court will order Ravi to pay interim compensation. So pay interim compensation, not full amount, just pay interim compensation. How much, sir? Just 20% of the amount compensation. How much? Suppose if the check is for 1 crore. Now make payment of interim compensation, that is 20 lakhs. Make payment of 20 lakhs to Anil. Within 60 days, of the notice from court. If you fail to make payment within 60 days, now you can approach court and you can ask further time. Now court may give grant extra time. So within 30 days of that time allotted by the court, you have to make payment of 20 lakhs to Anil. Failure to make payment, then you are liable to pay 20 lakhs plus such interest prescribed by RBI to the Anil. So initially Anil will get some amount, no, 20% of the check amount Anil will get that amount. So Anil needs will be satisfied. Anil needs will be satisfied. Now court will examine and court will give final order. Suppose after due examination, court found that yes, this check was given in order to discharge legally enforceable debt. Legally enforceable debt. So to discharge, I repeat, to discharge legally enforceable debt. Now court will order Ravi make payment of remaining 80%. So court will order Ravi. Court will order Ravi. Who is the Ravi? Ravi is the drawer. So court will order Ravi to make payment to Anil the balance 80% plus RBI prescribed rate of interest. Suppose it was proved that, sir, the check was issued not to discharge legally enforceable debt, sir. It was given as a gift, sir. For example, it was given as a gift, not for consideration, not for consideration. Now court will order Anil. Now court will order Anil. Anil, return that 20% of the amount which you claim 20 lakhs, return that amount to Ravi. So return that amount to Ravi along with interest rate prescribed by RBI. That's it, Andy. That's it. So you just remember the 20% interim compensation amount and the day limits, Andy, and the day limits. Just give one rough reading. Just give one rough reading. So just give one rough reading. It will be sufficient, and it will be sufficient. So 2 points covered, Andy. So this is the conclusion. And then for old syllabus students, so general, for new syllabus only. For new syllabus students, General Clauses Act, same Andy. Jammu and Kashmir issue was resolved, no? So Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019 dated 9th August 2019. The amendment is effective with from 31st October 2019. As per Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act, General Clauses Act 1897 has been extended to whole of India. Very simple. Indian Contract Act. An act is already applicable to whole of India including Jammu and Kashmir. But Indian Contract Act, General Clauses Act are now made applicable to whole of India. That's it. Next, Payment of Gratuity Act. So continuous service. Suppose a female employee who took maternity leave. Previously maternity leave was given 12 weeks only. Now it was extended to 26 weeks only. Previously the gratuity amount was 10 lakhs, but now it was extended to 20 lakhs. So the amount was increased. Next, Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act. So tribunal means, earlier tribunal means Employee Provident Fund Appellate Tribunal, but now the powers were given to Industrial Tribunal and so PF ki separate tribunal, ESI ki separate tribunal, industry ki separate tribunal, ivanni kakunda oke tribunal. So tribunal means Industrial Tribunal referred to in section 7D. Just the definition change, tribunal. And then next one is regarding so 7D. The CG may by notification in official gazette constitute one or more appellate tribunals to be known as Employee Provident Funds Appellate Tribunal to exercise the powers and discharge the functions conferred on such tribunal. See, what is the change? No need to read entire thing, Andy. Earlier it was Employee Provident Funds Appellate Tribunal, but now they made a change, Andy, that is so tribunal as referred under Industries Act. So tribunal as referred under Industries Disputes Act. So tribunal constituted by CG under subsection 1 of section 7A of the Industry Disputes Act. So there is just change in the name. Earlier tribunal means Employee Provident Fund Appellate Tribunal. Now that word was deleted. In that place tribunal as referred under section 7D, that was inserted. Next one, public servants. The presiding officer of a tribunal, its officers and other employees, the authorities referred to section 7A, and every inspector shall be deemed to be the public servants. Now new provision, eliminated, everything eliminated. Simply the authorities which are referred under section 7A and every inspector shall be deemed to be a public servant. So public servant previous old provision lo list ichcharu. ఇప్పుడు ఏంటంటే ఆ లిస్ట్ ఈ ప్రొవిజన్ నుంచి సెక్షన్ 18A నుంచి తీసేసి దాన్ని 7Aలో ఇన్సర్ట్ చేశాడు. దట్స్ ఇట్. సో దట్స్ ఇట్ ఫర్ ఓల్డ్ సిలబస్. జస్ట్ గివ్ వన్ లైన్ రీడింగ్. దట్స్ ఇట్ అండి. సో ఐ విష్ ఆల్ ద వెరీ బెస్ట్ ఫర్ యువర్ అప్కమింగ్ ఎగ్జామ్స్. సో స్టే సేఫ్.